All right, our next question. How do these practices impact the economic growth of people of color?
Whew. Not very competent with this question, but I love it. So if you're working with a group or you personally want to know more as a white person, classaction.com, I believe. Class Action is a group historically out of Boston who my guess is have a race class intersection understanding of how from the beginning of um, the first European white settler, colonizer, imperialist, genocidal, right, came exploiting people, lands, murdering. I used to live in Amherst, Massachusetts. When I learned that Jeffrey Amherst intentionally smallpox blankets, quote, gave in exchange and bartering to Native Americans, knowing it would slaughter, genocide. And that was just one example of that common practice, much less with guns and Gatling guns, etc. So recognizing that the slaughter, enslavement, lynching of, I don't know enough about building the railroad, how much of Chinese, Japanese labor clearly was as close to indentured servitude, if not slavery, in the essences. But I don't know if people were kidnapped and brought over. My guess is yes, given the history. So all that to say, knowing the history of how racism and white supremacy was linked with the economic growth of individuals and, quote, this country is a critical understanding that I have some knowledge of. Depending who you're working with, it'd probably be critical to understand. If you're working with a green group that's doing ecological climate change, saving the world, understanding how racism and ecology and is still going together. So racist, climate change, I've lost the word. Yes, intersections of all that. And who benefits when you put the industrial plant that's polluting water in a low-income folk of color area on a Native American reservation. You go in and you continue to steal uranium and resources, and you leave behind all the poisonous that gets into the water. I could keep going. The intersection of race to benefit whites. One of the hardest place for me, I mean, there are many hard places, but to realize that my current economic status is so built on white privilege and white supremacy, not only the legacy that my family inherited, but that as a white person, every job I got because of white privilege. Yes, I showed up delightful, engaging, I'm a bright gal, but everything I have is also because of white privilege. It's a incredibly humbling place for whites to get, and the resistance in me and the resistance of whites is huge. So I love the intersection, and I think it'll take a lot. So this is a place where kind of knowledge and history can be useful. Current dynamics of how whites are continually to be. You can look at, quote, the recession of 2008 and 9 and see how whites continue to benefit from the big banks getting saved, and how folks of color continue to be discriminated against, experiencing racism and classism. That's the headline. I know I'm not an expert, but you can come at this from in many ways. They are so intertwined. And one more thing on this one. A trap for many whites who grew up in poverty, currently are working class, currently have paycheck to paycheck, classless life experiences, can be very challenging to be asked to look at white privilege, understand white culture and white supremacy when economically you feel historically disadvantaged in classism and currently experiencing classist dynamics, classist microaggressions, and financially you feel you're living on the edge. And so having whites who also have marginalization in classism doing this work with other whites, so you can hold both of those, could be an incredibly healing, liberating conversation. That's not my experience. I grew up with middle to professional class privilege. So